Hello Saints, welcome in again for another midweek video. Happy 4th of July to you. Most of you that will be yesterday. We live in what some would call precarious times. We live in a time when things going on around us are concerning us, sometimes unsettling. We certainly live in a time when financially it's challenging to a lot of people. It's probably challenging to all of us. And there are varying reasons for all of that to take place, and this is not the forum or the time or the place for me to address the reasons. Because we will always, in our whole life, no matter what the conditions are, we will always have challenges. Financial challenges probably do more harm than anything if we allow them. The majority of marriages that fail because of financial hardships. There's a place that we can find ourselves, and that place is not a geographical location, but a place in our lives, in our thinking, and in our place where we rest. There's a place that we can find ourselves that will not allow financial hardships, financial concerns to cause us to go astray in our relationships. That place is called contentment. Paul writes to the church of Philippi, who was not a very wealthy church, and he's addressing that they were concerned with him, they were concerned with his need. But as he's writing, he says these words. He said, I am speaking, not that I am speaking of being in need. For I have learned, listen, saints, by the way, this is Philippians 4. I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Now, I can tell you that if you and I can get to that place, if we can learn that whatever situation we are in, to be content, then we will have victory. There's nothing and there's no one that can steal our victory from us. He goes on to say this. He says, I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and the secret of facing hunger. He said, I've learned the secret of facing abundance, and I've learned the secret of facing need. He's saying to us that regardless of our financial position, regardless of hunger and need, there's a place that we can find of contentment, that we can rest. And he goes on to say what that is. He said, and this is a very often quoted verse, I can do all things. Let me just read it. He said, I can do all things through him, through Christ, who strengthens me. I can do, in really a better translation of that is, I can do all things through Christ I can do all things for which Christ strengthens me. Everything that he gives me the strength to do, I can do it. And I can be content in him and his provision. In Psalm 37, David wrote, I've been young and now I'm old, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken or his seed out begging for bread. I know there are times we think it gets lean and we begin to wonder what's going to happen next, but I want to tell you, you're God's children. He takes care of you. Paul goes on to write, he said, not that I seek a gift, but I seek the fruit that increases in your credit. I have received full payment and more. And he's not really talking about a payment in the sense that they owed him something, but he's talking about the fact that they sent gifts. He says, I am well supplied. having received from Epaphroditus the gifts that you sent. So the church at Philippi had sent gifts to Paul. They had sent something of value to support Paul in his ministry, to support him as he traveled and taught and preached and established churches. He said it's a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God. Now the next verse is also an often quoted verse, and I'm not sure about context, but sometimes we just quote the verse and we forget the context. But he says, and my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory. My God will supply every need. But let's remember, I'm not saying that verse is predicated on our being willing to give or to help another person, but it is in the context, and Paul is writing it in the context of you were willing to sacrifice. He knew these were very poor people. These were not wealthy people. They were not reaching into barrels of money and throwing it at Paul, but they were very, very anemic financially. And yet they sent gifts through Epaphroditus to help Paul. And he says, in light of that, my God will supply all your need, every need you have. Now I know there are times, because I've been there, but there are times when we think that's not going to happen. We think that we are seeing ruin in front of us. But I want to tell you that David said, I've been young and now I am old. I've never seen the righteous forsaken. And I've never seen the seed of the righteous out begging for bread. Does it get thin sometimes? Yes. Do we have to be creative and prudent? Yes. But I want to tell you that if you're faithful to God, if you're faithful to be generous with what you have, be it small or be it large, you will see God's hand in provision for your life and your family. I said this recently, I'll say it again. One of the great things we can do is to look back. No, we don't live in the past, and we don't try to live in the past. We shouldn't even desire to live in the past. But when you look back down that road that you've traveled in Christ, you will see time after time after time when you thought the ice was so thin that you were going to be sinking into the cold waters. But you'll remember, and you will see that you made it through. You will see God's hand. You will see God's provision that brought you out. You will see that God has supplied every need that you would have. And I want to finish this video by just reading the same guy, the same Apostle Paul, writing to his spiritual son, says this: godliness with contentment is great gain. Godliness with contentment is great. Why? Because we brought nothing into this world, and we can take nothing out of this world. And he says this: if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. Of course, he goes on to say, but if you desire to be rich, you're going to fall into a snare. So I'm saying to us today, find that place of contentment. Contentment in what you have, who you have, and in the God that you have, and more importantly, the God who has you. Hold up your head. You will make it through whatever it is you're going through. Have a good day. Have a good week. God bless. And go out there and act like somebody.